Today, we have the privilege of hosting Dr. Hassan Sawaf. He's a pioneering figure in artificial intelligence with over 3 decades of experience. Dr. Sawaf's journey began in the 1990s at RWTH Aachen University in Germany, where he co-founded Explain AG, including one of the first commercial speech-to-speech translation systems in 2002. He's previously served in leadership roles at eBay, Amazon, and Facebook. Notably at Facebook, he worked on building AI technologies for augmented reality experiences, integrating computer vision and NLP to push the boundaries of user interaction. In 2020, he founded Explain. His goal was to democratize AI by providing platforms that make advanced machine learning tools accessible to both businesses and innovators. As just further evidence to his extensive portfolio, he holds over 60 patents and publications as both a researcher and an innovator in the field. Our goal today is to talk about AI agents. What does the world look like with these agents? How do we separate the hype from the reality of AI agents? And where do we see things going with agents moving forward? Dr. Sawaf, nice to meet you.
Very nice to meet you. Thank you for having me.
What's so different about AI agents? Like, what are AI agents? How are they so different from just AI in general?
AI agents are constructs which actually have a reasoning component in them, and you basically give them tools to do actions according to the reasoning they basically do. So, a simple way of thinking about agents is you might have the reasoning component might be a large language model. The large language models are getting more and more smart in building basically reasoning models, and you give them, for example, access to outside tools. It can be your calendar, it can be your emails, it can be your CRM, etc., etc. And then basically the agents can translate requests, prompts, instead of translating them just into text. They actually can call these, as we call them, tools to do something with them. No, this is one advantage of having an agent. So instead of taking a large language model, translating text into text, you translate text into actions. The other advantage is agents have the capability of being proactive instead of reactive, which is typically software. You expect either someone programs workflows and then they go forward this way. They can actually be proactive. I mean, learn certain things and start acting the way you want them to act. So this is another component. So a third thing is they are also self-healing. They can be self-healing, meaning you might actually have given an agent a task. So, for example, always look at your calendar when certain events are happening on your calendar, sending certain kinds of emails, etc., etc. Now, suddenly you change your email client and the APIs don't work as easily anymore with the new tool, with the new calendar. So what in the past used to have happened, so every time you have a workflow change, you need to go have an engineer go in, do new coding, change basically the tools, test, etc., etc. Now what you can do with the agent is to say, okay, you have a new tool. These are the capabilities this tool can do. Figure it out. So reason, figure out, learn from mistakes and improve and so forth. The advantage is here that you need lesser engineering effort to achieve basically similar results.
So let's take a step back to the first one. The self-healing is fascinating, right? Because that can be very extensive. If you move from Outlook to Google Calendar,
Google.
a human can easily know that, oh, I go to this calendar for this and I go to this calendar for that. The AI agent can kind of do the same. But going back to the first one, which is going from text to action, I think one of the things that is for people that come from the space, they'll say, well, how is that so different from robotic process automation? Right? RPA has been around forever.
A
And like,
long time.
are we
Yes.
just hyping agents as being something
Mm.
incredible when we've had, I mean, I'm old enough to remember when we had Excel macros, right? Like we were running
Uh,
macros, we were running Visual Basic. And so, how is this that much bigger, that much better than that? Or is this just the next stage in the evolution?
it's definitely part of the evolution. Nothing is linear at the end of the day, right? I mean, it is definitely in the next iteration for that kind of tasks as well. So, robotic process automation, you need to program them to do a certain thing. You have to draw a workflow very diligently to make sure that every step was touched upon to basically achieve the result you want to have. Now, with agents, it's different. With agents, you can, of course, give them the exact every little step of the details, etc. But you can also tell them, figure it out. I mean, meaning every time I get this and this kind of email, do this and that on my calendar. Doesn't mean that I need to sit down and write the rules step by step, go in, open this, do that, etc. Not every step is necessary anymore. So you give the tool of the calendar, you give basically the LLM or the agent, you give them basically all the steps you can do, teach them on all the steps you can do, and allow the agent then to figure out what are the micro steps you need to do. This comes with a drawback. Today's technology is still a little bit stochastic, meaning there is going to be errors. I mean, everyone heard about hallucinations. These are the typical representation of these bugs, if you want to call them that, of these systems, large language models being probably the most prevalent version of these kind of reasoning models. While we are actually moving towards agentic systems, the place of using RPAs is still definitely there. It's getting closer and closer that agents are actually doing less. You can either use better LLMs, which are doing less hallucinations. You can also build agents which don't function only with one reasoning component and the tools on top of it, but build more complex systems, something which basically controls each other. Think about one system being the reasoning system to do the actions, and one system to police the
Yeah,
second
the
system, for
QA,
example.
the quality
Exactly.
control.
And then we call them policing agents. So inside an agent, now you see multiple agents doing a job. One basically doing actions, one being policing, making sure that the other one is doing the right thing with the right data, etc., etc. So doing that enables you to benefit from the capabilities of agents while having lesser of the issues like the errors of hallucinations and other errors, actually, which LLMs can come up with.
Fascinating. So they can take text into action. They can be nested with multiple agents under one agent. So you
Yep,
got this agent, and it actually has multiple sub agents. And those
exactly.
sub agents could have multiple sub agents, which allows them to be able to do a myriad of tasks. But around along those tasks, also make sure the tasks get done correctly. If there is something that seems outside, maybe it's got escalation techniques. I mean, like there's all of this
Exactly.
stuff that's coming right now that is
Yeah,
super interesting.
yeah,
And then, you kind of mentioned some of the other aspects of it, self-healing. But, one of the things about agents that I think very few people are realizing is today we're sort of seeing the earliest version of these agents.
yeah.
Right now, they don't have access to the physical world at all.
I mean, some are starting to get there, right?
That's right. Like, if I will say, one of the funniest examples of agents that I explained to some of my friends, when you summon your Tesla, that's an
Yeah,
agentic move.
exactly.
And like, I don't think most people realize that.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
A
Exactly.
lot of people are using agents today that they don't even realize they are. Where do you think agents go? I mean, we are seeing them. I think, I will say there's a lot of hype around AI. There's
Hmm.
very little moat in most of these systems. We're
Hmm.
seeing OpenAI, Anthropic, and others launching their own agents or agentic platforms. Where do you think this goes? I mean, like, is it just going to be concentration of all the power in the same five companies?
No, I don't think so. So I exactly actually think that it's gonna be opposite. So in essence, we are going through a paradigm shift of developing systems. similar to in the mid or late 90s when the concept of microservices started happening. So it used to be in the 80s and before, a piece of software is one piece of code, one code base, building base, everything is one unit.
Yeah.
And then in the
Like a monolith.
90s,
Yeah.
yes, monolith, exactly. And then in the 90s, people started taking these tasks, and for many reasons, one of them being maintenance, speed, distribution, etc., started breaking up these tasks into subunits, sub-elements, sub-things. And it used to be that these microservices serve a certain function. So it's basically driven by the technology, kind of. I mean, now with the agent, we are taking the next iteration. Instead of thinking about functions, now we can think about roles. How would it be to program basically a system like building a startup, building a company? It's a company of agents solving a bigger problem together in collaboration. Now you can actually easier if you build basically if you architect your systems in this kind of agentic form. Now it's easier to debug. You can actually figure out roles. You can actually easier read what an agent did and why they did that and what can be improved on by just basically saying, here is the strategy. You can actually improve on that strategy by doing something I would do as a human, so and so.
Like you're trying to start your own accounting firm. One agent could be the bookkeeper agent. Every transaction that comes in, it puts it in the right category. And the whole job is they are the world's greatest bookkeeper that's
Mhm,
working 24/7, just looking at every single transaction that comes in
mhm.
across millions of transactions.
And then you have the controller on the other side, right?
Exactly.
And then you have exactly. Yep,
So instead of it being software that enables the bookkeeper and allows them to do it, the agent does the whole thing.
correct. And now the bookkeeper, the human bookkeeper, has suddenly more hands, can do things faster, and can control by basically doing the QA, can control on how certain things are done correct and improve basically his or her speed.
Why would you need a bookkeeper? Let's be honest now.
So I can tell you. I mean, so here's the thing. Bookkeepers, for example, have to follow certain rules, right? I mean, you can actually educate the agents by either saying, go and pay attention to the laws and adjust what you're doing accordingly. And then you need someone to like look, is it really doing what it's supposed to be doing? So someone needs to actually still watch over the shoulder of the agent
Until the
until,
agent's 100% correct.
well, that can happen, and I hope it's gonna happen. Then we can actually follow,
I mean,
deal with bigger
rules-based things.
problems. Yeah,
Rules-based things, Hassan. Like
100%,
it's it's
100%.
gonna be it's gonna be better than the human.
And faster and more accurate. Yes, definitely. No question there. Yeah.
So are there certain roles? I mean, I feel bad for my assistant, but like her role is at big risk because a lot of times her job is to make sure that, you know, my calendar is done correctly, my emails are going correctly, my travel plans. These are things that agents are uniquely good at, correct?
I mean, I think so that agents are gonna take over these kind of jobs, which are today most of the times like annoying to us. I mean, because they are repetitive. The systems are gonna learn to do that better. Where you have a lot of diversity, changes, and whatnot, you are gonna still want someone to basically be able to deal with things. I mean, so there's going to be. I mean, I think our assistants are gonna actually be more efficient by basically focusing on the things which you care about, which is a one-off kind of situation vis-a-vis the calendaring and and all of that is gonna be taken care of by the by the machines in a better way than what we're seeing today with humans. I definitely agree that there is a change. So in essence, the best EA is going to be the person which can actually utilize these agents for their use. So having more hands, be faster, and focus on the things where you are unique compared to the EA. That uniqueness might change in the second iteration because then the
I was
EA,
gonna say,
yeah, I mean, it's gonna get better. But this is also good because, I mean, we can actually innovate. I mean, basically, our job as humans is to think and innovate on a continuous basis, which actually generates advancements. We don't stick at a certain stage. We continue to evolve, which is a very important piece for
the
us.
the the issue is, I believe that until the last couple of years, and now I've interviewed people like Alex Petrescu, who's making Hollywood movies with just AI, no actors. He didn't pay a single actor. He didn't pay a single director. He didn't pay a single scriptwriter. So we want to convince ourselves that the creative jobs are going to stay. The human creativity will be valuable. But actually, and this is a question for you, I never believed that LLMs were going to get rid of jobs. I never believed that. But I do think that agents could.
Yeah,
Do
well,
you agree with that? Do you think agents are going to be the beginning of this big crisis that comes from AI taking jobs?
so here's the thing. So, I mean, the job market is gonna change, no questions, or no questions there. The agents are gonna change the way we are doing business in many, many aspects. In 80, 90, maybe 100% of all the things we do, it's gonna change. But it's gonna allow us to also evolve, solving problems. I can tell you from the software perspective, I'm not gonna deal with assembly anymore when I started with microservices. I'm not gonna deal with microservices anymore when I'm basically building agents. I can solve bigger problems because I have a higher level of abstraction where I'm dealing with things. I can actually now hire millions and millions of agents instead of millions and millions of people and solve problems which we never dreamt of being able to solve, right? And I think that's how we I mean are gonna generate new jobs while we are eliminating some of the jobs. Now the question is, are we eliminating more than we are creating? Are we I mean, maybe we are creating more than we are eliminating. I don't know. That's something which we're gonna have to see.
And by the way, Hassan, the one point I will say is people always think that we're going to end up eliminating sort of lower, that it's the opposite, actually.
It's not anymore. It's
Yeah,
it's the PhDs, the masters people, the people which we thought are gonna be safe. We're never gonna need to change anything, which is not the case anymore.
I actually had this conversation with a good friend, and they said, "What are the jobs you would not do at this point?" And I was like, "Anything that has to do with knowledge. It's just not even worth it." Like I've got a kid, and I always think about him, and I'm like, I don't know what he's going to study in school because it's not about if it's a repetitive task, agents will take care of it. If
Yep.
it's knowledge based, LLMs will help, and I'm
Yep.
sure we'll come up with other things. And once we have robotics that really takes off, we're going to be interviewing some folks in that space, and
Yep.
it's, embodied AI is gonna be another sort of step up, and so it's just, what do you even with these agents being around, where do we even go?
I think the way we are doing education is going to have to change. So it was typical years back, decades back, that you basically have to come to a test at school and you will need to know, you have to keep knowledge in your head. So what you learn is memorize rules, memorize this, and I'm going to ask you about what you memorized. It's going to be different. I think it has to be different. We need to we need to learn how to learn. We need to be able to learn on how we can improve. I mean, looking up things is not as big of a deal anymore. 30, 40, 50 years ago, it was a big deal. But now it's not. Internet is there, LLMs are there, agents can help me with things, and I can hire hundreds of agents to solve a certain problem. In the past, me as a student will have to do, etc. But structuring basically those agents, building like a team of agents, I mean, is going to be a big thing. So you need to know problem solving, you need to know management, and so forth. So the structure of what kind of things we need to learn is going to have to change, and fast, because we're not going to slow down in
Mm-mm.
developing AI capabilities. So the educational system has to improve dramatically so it can catch up with the technology right now. Yeah.
So let's get back to like brass tacks. So we know that there's going to be these huge issues. We'll deal with them. We'll let the philosophers and the politicians figure that out. I think about agents for like practically, there's going to be agents in consumer, so consumers can have their own agents. There's going to be agents for enterprise, and these companies can have their own agents. There's going to be agents that are going to be verticalized for healthcare, for education, for XYZ. How do you see this? I mean, is that sort of how you're seeing the world? And where do you see like the biggest opportunities? Like if you're listening right now and you wanted to go try out an agent and use it for yourself on a daily basis, Satya Nadella came out and said, AI is all hype until we see GDP go up by 10%, right? Like we're talking a lot about AI, but are we actually going to see an improvement in productivity? And if you're listening right now, where do you start?
It's a good question. So, I mean, you can approach it multiple ways. So, we have users on our platform where they basically are building their own version of ChatGPT or whatever it is, where they say, instead of going and utilizing ChatGPT, which is a great tool, but it is one solving the problem the same way for everyone, they're building something on their own, and it costs close to nothing to develop this kind of capability, knowing about your own data, knowing about your own, like what tools you use, etc., etc. So this is one way to go. As a business owner, you need to think about like your business. How can you, what would it look like if you can suddenly hire millions of workers more for your company? Would you restructure your company? Would you? I mean, how would you, and how would you do so? For example, I mean, think about retail. What we used to do in retail, we would have basically machine learning algorithms understanding everyone's way on how they do search for a certain product, and learn basically what is common so that we can suggest a certain thing for a new user. Now, with agentic frameworks, you can actually think about it differently. Think about the user journey, build basically roles. How can I actually build agents for each step of the journey to be the best versions of basically in to help you through the process? Not only that, so that would help you basically having those agents being super good workers for me. But you can also think about it in a different way. You can actually say each user which is coming to my platform, I'm gonna give them an agent which is basically following them in collaboration with the agents which they're collaborating with, can be a co-pilot without needing to basically, so they will understand preferences better, they can suggest something, they can take the customer aside and suggest something while the selling agent is doing like it's selling, so to say, etc., etc. So you can get actually very inventive because you suddenly can hire 10 million more agents or like workers to help you with things. So that is probably going to be the new way of how to think about solutions, where you can actually build more personalized information, and not personalized by basically simply putting people in buckets, but really personalizing. You have an agent which knows about your interests and go from there. My first agent, by the way, I built was at eBay. We called it ShopBot. There was an LLM in the center. There used to be short, medium, and long term memory. And we built this kind of capability 10 years ahead of its time. So in 2015, but it showed these like magical moments where people were like, oh, this is more than just doing collaborative filtering for search and just giving you what 10,000 other people did before because they behaved similarly, right? And this is going to be changing our way of doing work. I mean, The same way for, I mean, if I think about Uber, I'm sure they are working on agentic things there, and so forth. So it's shopping. I mean, and imagine you can actually take an agent and have all these other agents being tools to them, sub agents to them.
The big question in my mind, I always think of the world in terms of, it's funny, but it's iRobot versus Wally, right? Like, is it one central thing that's your companion that then interacts with other robotics and other agents? Or will you have a separate agent for every little thing, like one agent that does this task and one agent that, like a shopping agent, a travel agent, or you're going to have one that's your representative and then they work with those separate, platforms. It's something that I think quite a lot about because I don't
Yeah.
know if there's one good answer there.
My assumption is it's exactly the hybrid. You're gonna have your own agent, and there's gonna be other agents which are specialist agents in their domain, and they're gonna help you with your agent do things better. So, but you, as a user of the system, don't need to worry about the microscopic details step by step anymore because your agent is gonna deal with that. I mean, similar to having a great EA, you can actually tell that person, I need to get there and I need to do this. And you don't need to worry about the minute details. And you get there, everything is in place, everything is prepared, and you basically go and enjoy what you went there for, instead of needing to deal with, oh, I need to change this, and the hotel room was different than what I usually want, and all these things.
I mean, that happens still, but yes, I'm just kidding. It's just how it is until I
It
get a
is
real
gonna,
agent.
it's
Yeah, but it's funny. My EA is probably freaking out watching this. But I was gonna say that it's one of those things where the agents are learning our preferences, and there will be one agent that represents our interests, and they'll be working with other agents, and we don't get to see it. It sounds like you're saying, and I guess that's a question: are agents the new operating system?
yes, I think so. So if you think about the underlying technologies, whether they are tools or even LLMs or any of those kind of things, those are um, operations or tool. I mean, they are not the operating system level anymore. It's going to be the agents. The agents are going to basically be the operating systems. And the beauty is that the interface is easier for us to debug, right? I mean, because it's programmed with language, for example. I mean, prompt engineer, we all talk about prompt engineering, but the thing is, it is language. So you can go into each individual step and basically see, why did the system reason a certain way? And then you can actually adjust it. So we don't need engineers as much anymore. I'm actually killing. I mean, I am an engineer, right? But at the end of the day, we are able to give everyone. This is a democratization, which I was super excited about when we started Explain. Everyone can code as long as you can communicate. When you can communicate, now you can code an agent, you can debug an agent, you can expand on your agent, you can build bigger agents on top of agents, etc., etc.
If anybody can do it and you're democratizing access, at some point, the question will become, what's the moat for these businesses, right? I wonder if we're going to see AI agents get crazy commoditized over time.
Mhm. I think so. I think the moat in a company versus another company is gonna have is how you architect basically these agents to collaborate with each other. Definitely also the data you are basically giving the agents to learn from. Very important. And by the way, it used to be the more data you have, the better the system is. It's not anymore. You can actually, with small amount of data, if it's the good data, the right data, you can actually do magic with that. And building an agent around it is actually what. So these are the two things which you're, and of course, at the end of the day, if you build experiences which are very lovable around these agents, that's gonna make you make a differentiator for you for sure.
Are agents going to get rid of all these software businesses? Are we going to see SaaS go to zero?
SaaS is going to definitely change, and the companies which are basing their business on SaaS have to adopt the agentic framework, the agentic way of thinking for sure. Um, it's gonna introduce a little bit of no, it's gonna introduce overhead, because at the end of the day, agents, I mean, have components in them where the latency is slower, and so forth. But that's a matter of time until that's going to go away. And hardware is moving very fast. We have chips like Grok accelerating the AI capabilities, and NVIDIA is improving year over year by a factor of between 50 and 100% speed, etc. So it's going to happen that the speed is not going to be the issue. Yeah, but I think so I think that one is gonna go away. The advantage, of course, is you're buying with that the easier maintenance, the cheaper. I mean, maintenance is not needing a human anymore, which means the systems get cheaper actually, not more expensive.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because I think about latency of humans. We shouldn't be comparing it to other machines, right? We should be
Yeah,
comparing it to humans,
a
right?
hundred
And
percent, a hundred
and
percent.
there are companies that are working right now on agentic care coordinators, agentic, nurses,
Uh-huh.
agentic doctors.
Uh-huh.
And I find it very fascinating because as you go up that chain, they get more and more and more expensive to have humans. And if we can see agents even take away 20, 30, 40% of the tasks, you're now cutting a lot of overhead. So it's interesting that you said it'll increase
Mhm.
overhead and it will increase latency. The systems with humans today are slow and they're expensive.
100%. And sometimes, I mean, the more specialized you are, the lesser of these humans you have. I mean, you're talking about doctors. Sometimes we have to wait 6 months until we basically have an appointment just because it's a specialized doctor for a certain area, for example. That is actually true also outside the healthcare area. You don't have, I mean, the more specialized, the lesser people you have, the more expensive they are, the slower you are to find the right person to begin with. So, I mean, yes, the reference system should actually not be machines versus machines, but machines versus humans. So 100%. I mean, that's definitely true.
It is a wild time in AI. I will say we still have yet to see agentic systems enter day to day. Everybody has access to large language models, their favorite one. The large language models are starting to reason. I'm really excited about test time compute, which is super interesting.
Mhm.
I will say that they're taking old school NLP techniques and now bringing it to LLMs, which is super interesting to me. Agents are still not a part of our day to day. I would say most people in the world don't have agents.
Mhm. I mean, that is true. That is true. But it's gonna change. I think we are at the door of it. I mean, agents, we are talking in it in the news, in science, etc., etc. We're seeing some things now scratching the surface, starting to pop up. Um, but I mean, it's very obvious that the agentic systems are gonna come. Now, is it 6 months until we are in the middle of it? Or is it 18 months? Or is it 36 months? We'll have to see. More than 3 years, it's definitely not gonna be. I don't even think we're gonna need to wait 3 years until we see it happening. I mean, many companies are a little hesitant of using agents for specific reasons. One of them, one most maybe most important, is safety and security. I mean, they want to actually have an agent not go berserk and do things which they don't know, which are not programmed to be or not planned to be doing what they're doing. But now with these capabilities of having controlling agents inside systems. Enterprise companies are actually feeling more comfortable dabbling in that field and going into that field and experimenting. You see, I mean, actually, insurance companies, for example, using agents side by side with humans, still with control. I mean, like QA done by the human, just in case nothing goes wrong and whatnot. But they're already much faster. So the human agent, which is in the call center, can now focus on the hard problems, can now focus on the actual customer vis-a-vis the calculating certain things and whatnot. And the empathy of the human agent with the customer is generating added value to the insurance. So the KPIs are going to change. The KPI is not how many customers did you serve, but like improving the net promoter score of the customer, which is even more important because that generates stickiness for the company, etc., etc. Definitely starting. I can see it in
I'm pretty
banks.
convinced that we're not going to see agents really enter day-to-day conversations from the enterprise world. I think the moment somebody builds the right interface for agents, by the way, you know who's in best position to do that? Apple. Siri would have been the perfect agent, except Siri doesn't know when to do anything and to do it correctly. But Apple, because all of us have iPhones, all of us have, other people have Androids. I think the consumer agent, it should be coming any day now. And once we have consumer agents, I think the game changes, because if the average consumer gets used to using agents at home, they're going to get used to using agents at work. And I think like that
100%.
part of it is going to be, but I don't see a consumer agent really rising.
Yeah. So you're talking about agents which we see immediately in front of us or utilize it immediately. There's agents behind the scenes which probably are 10 times more, maybe
Yeah,
more
like
than
back
10 times
office.
more
Yeah, yeah,
back
yeah.
office, which is going to happen. But your point is correct. The devices which you are using today is one, but it might be also the advent of agents might actually change the way of how we are dealing with these devices. There might actually be other devices. They might look like this, for example, rather than like this. So we'll have to see what the market is going to bring. There is these companies which are having wearables, like and other companies which are doing devices which like have a camera and a big display, and that's what I mean. The world has to experiment, and I am actually happy that these companies came out. Are they going to be it? I don't know. Are they going to? Is it going to be what I worked on at Facebook, like the wearable devices with display and microphone and whatnot? We'll have to see. But there is going to be a transformation on how we are dealing with compute, or I mean, with the virtual world. And I think we might. I'm almost 100% sure it's not going to be looking like this. We'll
Hmm.
have to see. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, because the what's the right interface for agents, for consumer agents? I think that is the big holy grail that people are trying to figure out.
Yep.
I don't think we have the right interface yet. Will it be, headphones? Is it going to be glasses? Is it going to be something that is around your neck or something that's in your pocket? Is it going to be a neural chip? Like, we don't know, right? We have no clue
Yeah.
yet.
We still have a lot of experimentation to do to figure that out, to hone in on that interface at the end of the day. Yeah, definitely.
Agreed.
Yeah.
As we close up, I wanted to ask about the dangers of relying on agents,
Mhm.
right? I mean, depending on how much you rely, if you grow up with agents, right? Just like if you grow up with cell phones or if you grow up with computers and social media, there are good things and then there are
Mhm.
bad things.
Mhm.
If you're thinking about misalignment with agents,
Mhm.
what is the number one thing that you're worried about?
So it's happening already today. So people, I mean, agents and LLMs are getting really good, right? And people are taking oftentimes these kind of capabilities as a given. I mean, as fact. If I want some information, I sometimes speak with someone who is young. They're gonna say, "Okay, I'm gonna check it out in ChatGPT," and then they show me that as if it's fact, which is a very dangerous situation. That's definitely one of the definitely one of them. But education is going to be a critical component. Education to understand where the limitations are of these systems. Education is also how can I actually influence these systems and how other people can influence them. Because if I learn on how other people can influence these kind of capabilities, I have lesser a danger on falling into the trap of yeah, I mean, misuse and so forth. So this is basically, I think, the most important thing for me personally. Education is the number one thing which we need to look into. Yeah,
Can I give you another one that I find very fascinating? It's
please.
if you looked at the life of a dog,
Uh-huh.
from our perspective, we are the owner of that dog, right?
Mhm.
But from the dog's perspective, they get fed, somebody cleans their poop, somebody takes care of them, right? They take them to travel, they do all of these great things for them. I'm worried that agents are going to make us so complacent that they become the human and we become the pet. And it's something that I'm really worried about because ultimately, as you add agents on top of agents nested, at some point, you'll just be like, hey, agent, go take care of my kid. Hey, agent. And, essentially, we will give too much autonomy to these machines and then they get to drive us uh, to idiocracy, which is something that I'm really worried about.
Well, that I agree with you actually, and I hope that we can. So this is not only education in schools, but also education. Society has to actually work together on this kind of thing. So continuous education basically is that we don't fall into that trap. Otherwise, it's gonna be Wally doing all the jobs, and we are sitting in a chair and just eating, and that's it, right? So yeah,
That
totally agree.
uh, that world seems more and more likely. Thank you, Hassan. Really appreciate your time. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you for having me. It was fun.
All right.
Thank you.